want to talk about why things roll. And in fact, we always talked about a block on a ramp. And we talked about that block sliding down a ramp. And maybe it's a frictionless ramp. If it's a frictionless ramp, the free body diagram is easy. It's just mg and the normal force. So in the direction of motion, we can break this down into mg sine theta, and mg cosine theta is perpendicular. So this is the net force down the ramp. So if we have friction in the other direction, it would be mg sine theta minus the force of friction equals ma. But if it's frictionless, mg sine theta equals ma. The masses cancel, and the acceleration is just g sine theta. When we have a ball, it's a little bit different. Okay? If the ball just slides down a ramp, no problems. But if the ball is rotating, then there's a little bit of an unknown here. Okay? If the ball is rotating, if it's rolling without slipping, we call this. Rolling without slipping means any point on that ball corresponds to one point on the ramp. It slides, and it's always in contact with the ramp. It doesn't slide. It rolls, and it's always in contact with the ramp. It doesn't slide or slip down the ramp. So what makes this thing roll is the friction. If you think of, there's two different ways to look at this. One is to say, well, here's mg, right, acting on the center of mass. And then there's the normal force. And the normal force perpendicular to the surface. Okay? If we take the center of mass of the ball as the point of rotation, our point of reference, neither of those things provides a torque, so it won't roll. But if you look, friction, which takes place at the surface, does provide a torque. But there's actually another way of looking at it. You can look at this as the point of rotation, the contact point. At the contact point, force of friction goes through that, no torque from that. Normal force goes through that, no torque from that. But mg does not go through, so there's a torque. So if we wanted to look at, what makes this rotate, if we do around contact, around the center of mass, and let's call this direction positive. If we do around the center of mass, once again, mg doesn't cause any rotation, normal force doesn't cause any rotation, but force of friction does. So sum of torques equals I alpha. Well, the only torque is R. I'm going to use capital R. Radius of the sphere or ball or whatever this thing happens to be, times the force of friction, equals I. And let's say this is a sphere. And if it's a sphere, I is 2/5 mr squared. Okay, that's the rotational inertia around the center of mass. Sometimes they write center of mass. So around that point, which is what we're considering in this case, right? We're calling that the point of rotation. R times force of friction equals 2/5 alpha, 2/5 mr squared times alpha, but remember that alpha is just a linear acceleration divided by r. And if it's not slipping, then this relationship holds. If it were slipping, it could not rotate at all. Alpha could be 0 as it accelerates down the ramp. So this we can substitute in a over r, the radius, which I'm used as capital R just to make it a little easier to read. If I multiply both sides by r, I get r squared, r squared. These all cancel out, and the acceleration is 5/2 force of friction divided by the mass. Okay? Well, look, we got a whole bunch of unknowns. Even if I gave you the mass, this wouldn't help you too much. All right? Even if I gave you mu, it wouldn't help too much, because we don't know that it's the maximum force of static friction. And it is static friction. When a ball is rolling down a ramp, it's static. It's not sliding. It's not a kinetic friction. So it is static friction, but it's not necessarily at the max. So we can't use mu times the normal force. Okay, so that doesn't work so well for us. It definitely demonstrates that if there's a force of friction, there's going to be an acceleration. Okay, there's going to be if there's a force of friction, there's going to be an angular acceleration. But now let's look at it from a different perspective. If we look at it, and let's still pick this as positive, but instead of around the center of mass, let's take it around the contact point. Now, for those of you in AP Physics 1, I'm going to do a little trick here that you don't see in AP Physics 1. In AP Physics C, you do this, but I'll show you what it is. Okay, so around the center, a contact point, I need to cross that out even better. Force of friction goes through the contact, no torque there. Normal force goes through the contact, no torque there. So when we do our sum of torques equals I alpha, the only torque is from mg, and it is r, because this force is r away from the contact point, times mg, times this angle. And we could do all the fussy trig identities and geometric identities, but that ends up being the sine of theta. Okay? R mg sine theta equals I is a little more complicated. Here's why. That ball, now, we're not talking about how hard it is to rotate it around the center of mass. We're talking about how hard it is to rotate it around the end of the ball. So it's the difference between this is easy to rotate. If I rotate around this point, it's harder. I have to move that whole thing around. Okay, let me show you with a stool. It's easier for me to rotate the stool like this around its center of mass than it is for it to rotate it around the axis that runs through me. Much harder to turn it this way than to turn it this way. Okay, so the farther the rotational axis is away from the center, the harder it is to rotate. And there's a thing called the parallel axis theorem that allows you to adjust for that. So instead of using 2/5 mr squared, and I'll use capital R squared, you have to actually add in plus the mass times the distance from the center of mass squared, mr squared. So that's the rotational inertia. It's bigger by this thing here that comes from the parallel axis theorem. And then alpha, and again, I'm going to substitute in A over R, and I'm using capital R. The reason I do that is that cancels out all the R squareds. By the way, let me just add this. 2/5 mr squared plus mr squared is 7/5 mr squared, A over R. And then you'll see R squared divided by R is R, the R's cancel, so you just end up with this nice mg sine theta equals 7/5 m, oops, those m's will cancel, times A. So the A, the acceleration, is 5/7 g sine theta. So this gives the acceleration down the ramp just using the torque equation and assuming that it rolls without slipping. If it rolls with slipping, all bets are off. It's a little different situation that goes on. Once you have this, you can figure out what the force of friction is, because guess what? This is true, but also still sum of forces equals ma. Well, we have the A now, we have the m. The sum of forces down the ramp, if we pick this as positive, is just going to be mg sine theta minus the force of friction. So we could use that to solve for the force of friction. Okay, so that's why objects roll. Okay, and that's how we deal with objects rolling, using the rotational Newton's second law equation and the linear Newton's second law equation. Now, last thing I want to mention is if you have a sphere this is 2/5 mr squared plus mr squared. If you have a cylinder, this is 1/2. Okay, 1/2 plus 1 is 3/2, 2/3. So you get a different acceleration. Okay, the more stuff is out towards the end, the bigger, towards the outside, the bigger the rotational inertia, and the harder it is to speed it up. So a higher rotational inertia is going to give you a smaller acceleration. Taken to the extreme, if you just have a hollow hoop with the same mass, the rotational inertia for a hoop is mr squared around the center of mass plus this mr squared. This is 2, you end up with 1/2 here. So it has a smaller acceleration. The more stuff is towards the middle, the bigger the acceleration. The more stuff is towards the outside, the harder it is to speed it up if it has the same mass. So that's just a real quick background on things rolling down a ramp.